All right, so I know that I said in one of my last videos that I'm not going to discuss this hook and release anymore because a lot of you out there actually get it and understand that sports fishing, which is going out there, whether on a boat or fishing from the rocks or fishing from the beach, you're sticking a line out there, you're hooking an animal, a live animal, and the larger it is, the more damage takes place, and you're fighting this animal and you're stressing this animal out. With sharks especially, they start excreting lactic acid, which builds up in their muscles, especially if it's a large shark and you can't bring it in quickly. And that literally gives the sharks rigor mortis, and other fish species, tuna, etc. as well. It gives them rigor mortis while they're on the line. So once you get them in and you release them, they can't swim. They stiffen up, and their survival rate is very, very low. Certain species, as I mentioned before, their survival rate is 1 or 2%. There are a few other species, and some of you guys out there have mentioned it, but you're talking about small fish that you hook, you bring in within a couple of minutes, you take the hook out, circle hook hopefully, and you can release it, and it's got a high success rate of, it's just not going to die that easy. But I've been chatting to my son Cruz, who has been, for many years he did a lot of sports fishing, and he's caught big mai, he's hooked into marlin, tuna, sharks. He's been involved, he's been out on commercial tuna fishing boats, so he knows his shit. And he has stopped sports fishing because he told me that he's been down there at the beaches along Cape Town. And now let me explain something to you guys. There's no difference between a beach in Cape Town and a beach in Australia or a beach in California. If it's a beach and you hook sharks. And he tells me that especially with the drone fishing, they've banned it in this country now. So drone fishing is also part of sports fishing. And the guys would fly their baits out further than they would normally fly them out, obviously. Drop their baits out there. They hook a big, what we call cob, which is a white-fleshed salmon. And they can get up to 100 kilos. Big animals. And these are breeding stock. And then the guy hooks this fish, and he fights it for an hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours, whatever it may be, gets the fish in, and they don't even release the animal because it's pointless. The animal's not going to survive. It's going to die. Then he was telling me, and Cruz was telling me that when we have the sardine run, now anybody out there that knows anything about fishing has heard about the famous sardine run in South Africa. And he's been reading all these articles, and they come out all the time, and you've got these forums, and guys go out there, and they hook sharks. And they've got, sorry about the siren in the background, I'm not going to start this over. They hook large sharks during the sardine run, and they've got 5-6 meter long steel leaders to bring the shark in. And then they come online and they write about, I hooked 12 sharks today, I hooked 15 sharks today, I hooked 10 sharks today, and here's the one I got in. The rest of those sharks are swimming out there with long leaders, steel leaders, and 15-0 and 10-0 hooks down their throats, in their mouths, in their gullets, in their stomachs. And you guys out there, and I'm sorry to say, you bozos out there that believe that this is actually something good to do and that it's conservation orientated, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You're actually talking a big load of shit. And these are the facts. So what you guys are doing, you're trying to justify torturing fish, killing the breeding stock, by giving me figures on little things you catch. Yes, I catch a fish this size, that size, this size, that size, and it's on a beach or straight from a boat where it's not been dragged across rocks or lifted up and banged on the cliffs because you're fishing from cliffs. Those sharks or those fish have a better chance of survival, a much better chance of survival. But when you look at the bigger picture, and this is where you don't want to look because this is where the truth is. You don't want to look at the bigger picture because it makes you wrong. It makes you completely incorrect, and it takes all your arguments and boom, they're out the window. They don't exist anymore. So don't come to me with bullshit and try and bullshit the rest of the people watching these videos with rubbish. The facts are the facts. If you go out there, you hook a big animal, and it takes you an hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours, 3 hours to bring that animal in. Don't waste your time tagging it and releasing it, because the chance of that animal surviving is very close to zero many of the times, depending on the species. There is the odd species that's resilient and that you can actually release after a prolonged fight, as long as it doesn't get dragged across rocks, as long as it doesn't get gaffed. And how many of you guys have a friend with you and you're fishing for a shark or a big fish, and you get it into the surf zone, or it's a bit of a difficult area and you've got a long gaff, and you gaff that fish and you think you're not damaging it because you've gaffed it somewhere in the back or in the tail, and you drag the fish up onto the beach. Now it's flopping around, and if it's a shark, if it's a big shark, its liver's twisting, its liver's tearing, it has internal bleeding, the heart gets banged on the rocks, the heart gets banged onto the sand because they don't have a rib cage, and it gets bruised, and you are dooming that shark to death. Not only that, you've made that poor animal suffer for the last hour, 45 minutes, 3 hours. Then you bring it up, you stand there like a fucking idiot, grinning, taking photographs of the animal, and then you release it and you think you're doing something good for nature. You're not. You're fucking it up for everybody. And you that argue against me and other conservationists when it comes to hook and release and sports fishing, you are screwing up for everybody else. And what right do you have to do that? I want one of you guys out there that have been trying to propagate that hook and release is the best thing since sliced bread. I want you to give me the scientific facts on your claims, exactly how this works, and how these fish survive, and how these sharks survive being dragged over rocks, dragged over reefs. And like I said before, and it's something important, you go out with your boat, you put your echo sounder on, you find the reef, you drop your anchor on that reef with this chain, you fuck the reef up, and then you still catch the fish on the reef, and you fuck the fish up for sports. If you're going to fish, target what you can put into the pot and the pan. And you bring that home and you eat it. And once you've got your quota, and once you've got enough to eat, you leave the other animals alone. And if you cannot, and if you can help not anchoring your boat on a reef, that should be a priority in itself. So there we go. You can come. And there's a couple of you assholes out there that are come and argue with me again. But I'm not going to back down on this one. And I hope that everybody else that's listening to this, I know that everybody else has listened to this agrees, because they've also been telling you guys off. And they've been telling you you're wrong. And one of you guys, can't remember his name, he said his exact words: you go out there and you fuck a shark up with a 10-0 hook, and then you let it go and you think that you're doing a good job. You're not. So don't come with bullshit. Come with facts. And that's it. That's all I'm going to say about it. Come with any bullshit now, I'm just going to block you, and I'm not interested in what you got to say anymore. Hasta la vista.